The following is a Megadad's report card for Aliens Fireteam Elite on the PlayStation 5, reviewed by me, Adam Leonard.
They're unstoppable! But we're gonna stop them anyway! Send in the Marines! We're the Space Marines!
In the early 1990s, the Kenner Toy Company released an action figure line based on the classic 1986 film Aliens, which starred Sigourney Weaver as the sole survivor of a grim encounter with the titular monster, as she led a group of unprepared Space Marines straight into the heart of darkness to eliminate the threat from its source. While the film Aliens was a dark and grim action horror epic about survival against an unstoppable and unflinching species of extraterrestrial killing machines, the action figure line was obviously skewed towards children, with a bizarre levity brought to both the characters and the wars that they waged. The toy line included many of the characters from the film, several of which met grisly deaths on screen, as well as an array of alien characters that the kids could use to terrorize their plastic marines. The aliens in the film were a uniform species of black exoskeletons and silver fangs which stalked their prey like living shadows as they encroached in a hive mentality, but the action figure line bred different alien species to justify having multiple alien figures to sell. There was a gorilla alien with blue color accents, large hulking arms, and a rubber head which served to squirt water at the Marines. A scorpion alien which had a bronze finish and would explode into several pieces at the push of a button. A bull alien which was scarlet red and had an extending neck to serve as a battering ram, and so on. You get the idea. This toy line was always very bizarre to me, as it took the premise of a hard R science fiction horror tale and slapped a Saturday morning cartoon coat of paint on it in order to make it more marketable to casual fans and kids. I bring this up because I just finished the campaign of Aliens Fireteam Elite, and the core thought that I had in my mind during my entire playthrough was that this video game served more as a translation of the Kenner toy line approach of Aliens than it did the films from which the property originates. Allow me to elaborate. Fireteam Elite begins by having you, the player, create a custom Space Marine to play as throughout your experience. It's standard create a character fare with custom faces, hair, armor sets, and even an on-screen voice, although your character hardly speaks throughout the experience. As the game opens up and you play more, you unlock even more customization options, including new weapons, character classes, special abilities, and even weapon decals and paint jobs. It's kind of like customizing your own action figure. This goes a long way towards making you feel invested in your experience. However, the entire effort seems to be kneecapped by the way the game seems to go to great lengths to have the entire story happen around you and not because of you. What I mean by that is the entire campaign unfolds with your Marine being sent on a series of missions and having side characters converse with each other and carry the narrative forward through radio chatter rather than dialogue with your main character. Your commanding officer, who is back on the ship orbiting your mission site, will explain everything that's happening to you and even speak to the characters that are a part of your mission rather than having your character carry that conversation forward themselves.
If Xenos spread this far from Pala Station, they'll be after any survivors. Get moving.
It's very odd to be rescuing a civilian on a mission, and rather than you speaking directly to them to hear what's going on, they speak instead to your commanding officer, and it all just happens around you, with no involvement of your character whatsoever. This carries on throughout the entire game, and injects a serious disconnect between your actions and the through line of the plot. Another truly bizarre thing holding the cinematic immersion back is the lack of polish for conveying the story in between the missions. You as the player can bring yourself back to your main ship at any point and speak with side characters who will help flesh out the lore and goings-on for you. But these dialogue moments are stilted and bizarre, as the NPCs will stare at you blankly and speak with fully voiced dialogue, but none of the characters will move their mouths or emote as they do so. It was incredibly jarring at first and had me feeling like I was talking to an action figure rather than a living, breathing character. Also, there are absolutely no cutscenes or cinematics in the game at all, which is truly bizarre. When you have moments like an extremely climactic firefight as your fire team waits for air support and evac from the battlefield, rather than the game showing you get whisked away at the last moment, The screen simply fades to black once you reach your evac point and brings up your stats to show you how you did on your mission. This was never more jarring during the final mission of the game. I won't spoil how Fireteam wraps up, but I will say it was almost laughable to be battling through the game's most intense and climactic moment as the music intensifies and you fight with every ounce of strength you have left, only to have the game fade out as you enter an elevator and signal that you beat the game. I was slack-jawed at the disregard to giving the player any satisfying closure to the campaign whatsoever. The plot of Fireteam Elite thankfully is quite interesting, if not low stakes in an episodic cartoon kind of way, and it manages to tie in multiple different films into the experience rather than trying to milk the film, which it clearly draws most of its inspiration from. There is one campaign in particular which calls to mind the prequel films Prometheus and Alien Covenant in truly effective fashion. I was very impressed with how well Fireteam Elite managed to bring variety into your missions, as well as carry the story into new and interesting directions by bringing these ancillary films into the gaming experience. All in all, I really enjoyed the story being told in the game, but was left wanting more of a feeling of direct involvement in the happenings of each mission. With your character and your fire team remaining nameless, mostly voiceless, and basically a means to an end rather than story catalysts, I couldn't help but feel like my involvement in the whole affair amounted to nothing more than running and gunning to help carry me to the next episode. Speaking of running and gunning, the actual moment-to-moment gameplay of Fireteam Elite is not only the highlight of the experience, but it executes the feeling of being in a fight for survival against the xenomorphs more effectively than I could have hoped for. Gameplay for Fireteam Elite will instantly feel familiar to fans of Left 4 Dead or similar co-op episodic shooters. You and your fire team will go from point A to point B in a given chapter, clearing waves of oncoming xenos and restocking yourself at ammo and health caches, which are always placed right at the moment that your guns are beginning to run dry. Trigger events such as unlocking doors or calling for evac dropships will trigger waves of enemies against you, which will require you to set up perimeters of minigun turrets, mines, or assist drones as you hold your ground against the horde. It all feels very familiar and is a satisfying pairing of gameplay to this particular IP. The weapons are all incredibly responsive, diverse, and movie authentic. The sounds and handling of each weapon really feel like they're plucked straight from the film as you make your use of pulse rifles, smart guns, shotguns, flamethrowers, and so many more tools of destruction. The satisfying feeling you get as you hold your ground against oncoming waves of alien baddies with your fire team is exhilarating, and I found myself more than once quoting lines from the film in my living room as I sent these bugs straight to hell. Which brings me to the bugs themselves, and the game's biggest connection to the previously mentioned action figure line. Aliens Fireteam Elite has a variety of different Xenos to dispatch, each with their own special skills and color coding, just like the toys. You have spitters, runners, warriors, crushers, and so much more to contend with. This brings a much needed sense of variety and challenge to the game, which I appreciate, but it's also very stark deviation from the source material, and had me feeling more and more like I was playing a Saturday morning cartoon version of Aliens rather than a true translation of the atmosphere of the films. Being charged by a big red alien which looks like a bull, or having lime green spitters hiding behind blockades and lobbing acid spit at me throughout the experience just made the game feel a little lighter and less oppressive than I was hoping for from this experience. It may sound like I'm coming down harsh on Fireteam Elite, but truth be told, I had a wonderful experience with the game. Moment-to-moment gameplay is a blast, the graphics and aesthetics are truly on point, really making you feel like you're on set of an Aliens film, and I enjoyed leveling up and customizing my Marine hero to send on adventures, switching out my character class and loadout to vary the gameplay experience. The game sits perfectly with a budget $40 price point, and I think it's worth that price of admission if you're a die-hard fan of the franchise like myself. Just temper your expectations for tone and polish, and you can have a ton of fun blasting bugs with your Space Marine heroes, either solo or with your friends, just like you did when you were young with a pile of action figures. I give Aliens Fireteam Elite 3.5 out of 5 stars.